Hi, and welcome to the Southern Palette, where we bring Southern cooking to your kitchen. I'm your host, Sarah, and we're at the beautiful Caribe Resort located in Orange Beach, Alabama. Today we have Chef Reeds from the Cobalt the restaurant, and he's going to show us one of his favorite meals to make at home. So could you tell us what you're making for us today?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have going on here is a bourbon cream shrimp and grits. And the grits itself is a stone ground grit that contains tasso, which is basically a Creole ham, if you put it that way. It's a little spicy. It's cured 24 hours and then smoked. And then the shrimp itself is going to be locally caught shrimp that I thought was a good choice for this presentation, since you can wake up and practically see shrimp go in and out all day long. And then we're going to add a little bit of bourbon to it, because what doesn't make anything better than with bourbon? And a little cream sauce. And this is going to be a dish that's easy to make wherever you're at, and it's sure to impress people.
Perfect, let's get started.
All right, guys, well, we're just gonna go ahead and get started on our prep for the shrimp and grits. Right now, I've already turned my stove on a medium heat, getting the pot nice and hot and ready. We're gonna go ahead and add some canola oil. That way, by the time we're done with our knife work, the oil will be at the smoke temp, so it gives it a nice sizzle. The first thing we wanna do is take our yellow onion. We're gonna cut one side off, leaving the root side on. Cut it in half. Take off the outer layer of the skin. And then a quick, easy way of getting a nice diced onion, as opposed to how most people know how to do it, just cut it down in slices. We're gonna go a cross section on it. I'm sure people have seen this all the time in Food Network and stuff, and it's one of the basic ones you first pick up when you start cooking. And then that way we just keep it like that. Have nice little pretty dices. Happens in less than 30 seconds. Makes it feel like professional. Then we're gonna take our tasso. The one we use at Cobalt, we actually make in-house, but that's quite a process itself. So if you can go to the grocery store, Publix, Rouse's, something like that, you can just pick up a brand name like Manda. It's a pretty good one. So basically we wanna cut it in half and have like so. Cut down, and then we're going to make little cubes as well. All right. So our pot is looking good right now. We're going to go ahead, add our tasso, and you hear that sizzle. We're going to let that fat render out for a second. And tasso tends to be made out of pork shoulder most of the time, which is a fairly lean meat itself. So there's not too terribly much fat in there, but what is in there, getting it out into the pot and rendering it makes the dish that much more tasty. So while that's going, we're gonna go ahead, add our onions, our garlic that we've already pre-chopped. Mix it up a little bit. Now, since I'm doing this basically for a couple servings, I'm going to use 1 cup of stone ground grits. Most people like to use instant grits because it's really fast and more power to them, but I prefer to use the stone ground grits. It's got more body to it. It's a little extra work time to it, but it definitely pays off. So once you, I promise you, if you put a little bit of extra time into it, you'll definitely see how it works out. All right, off camera here, we're going to go and take 3 cups of chicken stock, about a cup of heavy cream, I'm gonna go ahead and add in a pinch of salt and a pinch of pepper, kind of let it mix up, and then go ahead and bring this up closer to a boil. And I'm making a mess because that's what I'm known for. And yeah, we're gonna wait for that to come to a boil real quick. All right, guys, well, now we should be at an almost boil, which is where we wanna be at. I'm gonna go ahead and take my grits, and we're gonna just go right in there. Now you're probably thinking, okay, so I got 1 cup of stone ground grits to 4 cups of liquid, that seems a little excessive. I promise you, the grits are gonna swell up, and before you know it, well, in about 20 minutes, if you consider that before you know it, it's gonna be ready to go. So, since that is now boiling, we're gonna bring this down to a simmer, and then that should be good to go from there. Woohoo. I am someone who is totally used to gas.
If you need an ungloved hand, I can come.
There we go. Right at the simmer mark. I forgot I wasn't supposed to do that. Whoops, my bad. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and start on the actual main part of the dish, the bourbon shrimp and cream sauce. Like we did with the grits, we're gonna go ahead, add some oil to that and get it nice and hot. Now, first thing you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and take your 2125s and peel them. If you've never peeled shrimp before, it's fairly simple. You're just gonna take it. You wanna put your thumb right underneath where the legs are, kind of just go around. And if you want to, you can take the tail off. I prefer to leave it on because it honestly just makes the dish look cooler and gives it a nice little flair. So we're just gonna go ahead. Also, if you're gonna be, if you're really into making stocks and stuff, you can go ahead and save your shrimp shells. And then once you have enough going, or enough built up, like maybe half a pound or so, you can make shrimp stock. So, which is great for stews, soups, sauces, stuff like that, to add a really nice seafood flavor to any dish you're making. So we got this. Now, to be honest with you guys, if I was at home, this is where I would stop. But most of the time when I'm at most restaurants and stuff, we're gonna go ahead and devein it because it's a cleaner presentation. I'll quickly show you. Basically, take your shrimp and whatever, or your non-dominant hand, take your knife in your dominant hand, and just kind of barely go down right there. And you're gonna get out this middle vein. And it's as simple as that. If you want even a more flair for the dramatic, you can go further down while you're cutting it and make a what's known as a butterfly cut. And that way it opens it up, makes it cook a little bit quicker, and also kind of just makes it seem a little bit bigger and cooler looking. But I personally prefer the look of this one, so this is how I'm gonna keep it. Just go through that. Now I'm using 8 shrimp in this one, but honestly, just leave it up to you. If you're going more for like a light lunch than a dinner, you know, maybe 5 to 6 shrimp would be a better option. Or, you know, if this is going to be the main course of your event for the night, I would definitely stick to more of like an 8 to 10 amount. And also, how big the shrimp is will also affect that. If I'm using 1620s, which is a size up from these, I'd probably go down to 6 shrimp since they're a fair amount bigger than that. But these are 2125s. And you can find them at, you know, any seafood stop around here. Put that to the side. I've already got cut onion right there from our last dish. So I am gonna go ahead and cut up my celery real quick. And show you pretty much just how we did with the onion and tasso. Just a quick little chip. Take it off to the side right there. And this right here will basically about the size you want. So now that we're at a good smoke point right there, so I'm going to go ahead and add my onions first. And what we're actually going to do, we're going to go with onion, green bell pepper, and celery, and that is basically known as the Holy Trinity in Creole cooking. You may have heard of mirepoix, which is French cooking, which would be the base of onion, green bell pepper, and carrots. Well, Creole Cajun has the same thing. We just swap out the carrot for celery. So let the onions cook for a second. And I always do them first. So that way they caramelize slightly, get a little brown to them, and that releases a lot of the natural sugars in it. So while we're waiting on that to go, We're gonna add lemon juice at some point, but just to go ahead, we're gonna roll it now. That breaks up all the cells in the actual lemon itself. And if you let it sit there, it's gonna be a whole lot easier to squeeze and get the juice out. You can actually get almost about a tablespoon of juice out first. Looking good right there. Go ahead and add. Give this a quick stir so it doesn't. Add our green bell pepper. And then I'm gonna add tomatoes to it as well. And I wanna add the tomatoes now because they're gonna break down slightly into the sauce. And it's, I'm gonna help with basically make a cream sauce and add to the overall taste of it and enhance it. Throw that right there. Now, while we're waiting on that to cook, I'm gonna chop up some thyme real quick. And just slightly peel it, or just peel it off real easy. And we're gonna give it a quick chop to add at the end of the dish. You don't really wanna add your herbs too early into the dish. Otherwise, you run a chance of cooking out the flavor. That's especially true with little light herbs like dill, parsley, stuff like that. Thyme and rosemary, you can add in a little bit later, but still, or a little bit earlier I should say, but still the later we add it towards the finish of the dish, the more flavor we're gonna get from it. All right. So we got that going, we're gonna go ahead and add our shrimp. Add a little bit of salt. A little bit of pepper. And then this right here is our blackening seasoning. Fun fact about that, Chef Pomperdoom was actually the first person to come up with blackening seasoning so he'd be able to sell redfish at his restaurant, which at the time were considered a trash fish. Nowadays, you can't go to any real good restaurant around here without seeing blackened redfish on the menu. It's considered iconic. It was just funny that a chef came up with a pretty good seasoning blend so he can make more money and make a dang good dish. So we're gonna go ahead and add about half of that amount. And you know, if you're afraid of the spiciness level, blackening seasoning combined with everything else is not really too spicy, obviously depending on the brand you buy. And you can omit it if you want, if you're afraid of the spice level, but we're gonna be adding butter, cream, a little bit of bourbon, so that's really gonna temper down that spice level in of itself. We're gonna go ahead, take our lemon that we just pre-rolled, slice it in half. I'm gonna let it run through our fingers in case there's any seeds that come through with it, and then we can be able to catch it. That way, when you're sitting there eating this delicious meal, you don't bite into a seed and be like, that ruined it. Deglaze with our bourbon. Put in there about a half a shot worth. Honestly, if you're kind of undecided which bourbon to use, you don't want to use a real expensive bourbon. That's just a waste. You just kind of want that flavor, that basic bourbon flavor to get into it. So go with the low shelf kind of variety itself. Unless you really, really want to show off, then you go with top shelf. So let that reduce slightly. And then we're going to go in about half a cup of cream. More salt. Now we're just gonna wait for it to reduce. Go ahead and give your grits a stir again. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but that 1 cup of grits is already getting close to overtaking the 4 amounts of liquid. We still got probably another 10 minutes on it. We're gonna up this right here. Now you do wanna be careful once you add cream into your dish. You'll go from a nice good boil and bubbling on it, turn your back to washing dishes, and the next thing you know, you're gonna hear shh, and turn around, and your cream's gonna be all over the stove. So it's very important to keep a close eye on it. All right, so our sauce is mostly reduced. Once you see the cream getting these really nice big bubbles, you can go ahead and turn everything off and remove from heat. And we're just gonna go ahead and add some butter. and our thyme that we chopped up earlier. And just kind of swirl it around. That way, you don't really want to break up your butter itself. If you do, you run the risk of actually breaking your sauce. So it's better to have kind of just to move it around and let it melt naturally on its own. And that's going to it's going to thicken up the sauce and add a really good mouthfeel to it, and obviously flavor as well. And as for our grits, we're just going to go ahead, now that we're almost done with that, add some Parmesan. Also butter to that. And just basically go all the way in like so. And definitely make sure to make a mess like I always do. That just adds to the authenticity of it. Cool, that's almost done. And then we're just gonna let that thicken slightly. But because of fantastic TV magic, I've already have this done. And we're gonna go ahead and show you how to plate it. So we're just gonna go down like so. Make a little divot with your tongs right into the grits. And just start pouring out the sauce. Make sure you get your vegetables nice and in there. Add that. And then for the extra fancy touch, throw some green onions that we already had cut on the bias right on top. Give it a little color to pop. Right the rim right there. And then that's pretty much it. Those are a little bit of a southern style shrimp grits. These are not actually the ones we make at the restaurant, except on for specials and occasions and stuff like that. But if you definitely want to try to impress some people while you're on vacation, this is super quick, easy to make, and it's delicious. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
All right, so now that it's ready, let's give it a try.
Absolutely.
We're judging you wholly on this.
I think it's a good dish to be judged on.
Get some of that sauce and the peppers.
It's pretty good.
That is really good.
As you see, you got like different complex flavors going on. You got the spicy from the blackening seasoning, and the real savory from the cream and the butter. And the tasso adds a little bit of that pork flavor to it. So it's kind of a good combination of local flavors that are around here, all combined into one dish.
Has a nice sweet taste, and it's also creamy.
Yeah.
I really like this.
Cool. Thank you.
So it's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, is the sweetness from the bourbon?
A little bit, yeah. It's going to be from the bourbon. When I caramelize the onions, that releases a lot of the natural sugar into it.
Okay, that was really good. It's almost like a dessert, savory dessert, but also not. And I'm a carnivore, so this is great. So how long have you been with Cobalt?
We opened up back in 2008, and I started a couple months after that and been there since then. Started as a cook, went to supervisor, then sous chef, and then about 4 or 5 years ago, executive chef.
Perfect, that's cool. How did you get into the whole cooking atmosphere before you even got into Cobalt?
I'm lazy. So my mom made me go get a job when I was 16, and I started off at one of our restaurants in this area, Magnolia Springs, at Jesse's. Turned out I really liked it, so I kind of just continued it from there.
Ah, perfect. And so do you prefer Southern style cooking or Creole style?
Well, I grew up on the whole Southern style, Creole style. My mom used to cook at home and stuff like that. Now, she inspired me to be able to do more by just some of her few dishes that she enjoyed. And then the further along I got in my career, I started branching out to different cuisines. And one of my favorites is probably more of the Southeast Asian around Vietnam, Thai. And I've been experimenting a lot with that recently, but I mean, Southern Creole, that's definitely my comfort. So I always return to that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chef Reed, for sharing this Southern style meal with us. I can't wait to share it with my family so they can be impressed by my new shrimp and grits cooking. We hope to have you again. Be sure to click the link to see the full recipe on our blog, and be sure to like and follow all of our social medias so you can see more of the Southern Palette, where we bring Southern cooking to your kitchen. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.